The air in the auction barn buzzed with tension as Rosie Hall stood at the edge of the crowd, her heart pounding in rhythm with the nervous energy that crackled around her. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, her worn boots scuffing against the dusty floor. The scent of hay and leather mingled with the earthy aroma of horses, filling her nostrils and stirring a familiar longing deep within her. This was where dreams began, and sometimes ended, under harsh, fluorescent lights. As she peered through the throng, Rosie caught glimpses of horses being led into view, their hooves echoing against wooden boards like whispers of fate. Each one had its own story, a past carved out by hands both gentle and unkind. And here they were for all to see, waiting to be judged by strangers who would decide their futures based solely on appearances and impressions formed in mere moments. "Lot 41 is up next," a voice boomed over the murmurs of anticipation, cutting through Rosie's thoughts like a knife. She leaned forward eagerly as two men led a stunning bay quarter horse into the ring. The mare moved gracefully despite the chaos around her, every step measured, every muscle rippling beneath sleek skin. Her coat glistened like polished mahogany under the overhead lights, but it was the spark in her dark eyes that held Rosie captive. There was something regal about this horse, a presence that demanded respect even amid uncertainty. Yet beneath that exterior lay an unsettling vulnerability that mirrored Rosie's own struggles. She could sense it, the unease radiating from within, as if the mare knew what awaited her on this block where dreams were bought and sold like commodities. "She's beautiful," Rosie whispered to herself, unconsciously tugging at a loose strand of auburn hair behind her ear as she focused intently on Lot 41's movements. But fear lurked just beneath that beauty. She could see it in how tightly wound the mare's muscles were, how occasionally she flicked an ear back as if anticipating something unseen creeping up behind her. Wade Hall stepped beside his daughter, resting a hand on her shoulder as he surveyed Lot 41 with keen interest. "Looks promising," he said quietly but warmly, though there was an underlying worry etched onto his weathered features. "What do you think?" I think she needs someone who understands," Rosie replied instinctively without taking her eyes off the horse. "Yeah?" Wade raised an eyebrow skeptically but softened when he saw how absorbed Rosie was by Lot 41's beauty and spirit. Rosie nodded emphatically. "I feel it. There's more to her than what they see." Just then, Lot 41 tossed her head nervously as another horse whinnied nearby, loud enough to send vibrations racing through Rosie's body even before reaching her ears fully with clarity. The sound echoed off metal stalls filled with anxious contenders awaiting their turn under scrutiny. Wade Hall studied Lot 41 with an intensity that belied the worry etched across his weathered features. "Looks promising," he murmured, his voice low yet warm, a subtle warmth that contrasted with the tension in his brow. What do you think?" Rosie's gaze remained fixed on the striking mare, her heart racing as she absorbed every detail. I think she needs someone who understands," she responded instinctively, her eyes drinking in the horse's beauty and spirit. "Yeah?" Wade raised an eyebrow, skepticism flickering behind his protective demeanor. Yet, there was something in Rosie's unwavering focus that softened his expression when he noticed how captivated she was by Lot 41. "Yes," Rosie insisted passionately, "I can feel it. There's so much more to her than what they see." As if sensing their gaze, Lot 41 tossed her head nervously at a nearby whinnying horse. A sound that raced through Rosie's body like an electric current before fully reaching her ears. The vibrations reverberated off the cold metal stalls surrounding them, amplifying the anxiety of all the anxious contenders awaiting their turn to be evaluated. Lot 41 stood slightly apart from the others, her sleek dark coat glistening under the fluorescent lights of the barn. She shifted uneasily on her hooves, nostrils flaring as if searching for assurance amidst the cacophony of sounds swirling around her. The air was thick with nervous energy. Even Rosie could feel it tugging at her insides. "She's scared," Rosie whispered softly, without breaking eye contact with Lot 41. A sudden wave of empathy washed over her as she imagined what it must be like for this magnificent creature, caught in an unfamiliar environment filled with loud noises and strange humans judging every little detail about her. A deep frown creased Wade's forehead as he watched his daughter become lost in thought. "You really want to take this one home?" he asked slowly, weighing each word as though afraid they might tip the scales one way or another. "More than anything," Rosie replied resolutely, determination coloring her tone, even as uncertainty loomed like shadows around them. Her heart thudded against her ribcage as nerves tightened around it. She couldn't shake off this feeling. The strong pull toward Lot 41 felt almost destined. "I just know we can make a difference," she added fiercely. Just then, a clatter erupted from further down the barn aisle, a pair of trainers leading another horse out for examination, and Lot 41 jerked back instinctively at the noise. The movement startled Rosie too. Adrenaline spiked within her veins at witnessing such raw fear manifested in those wide eyes staring directly at hers across several feet of space. "It's okay," Rosie called out gently, while taking a small step forward, but stopping short when Lot 41 flinched again and backed into a corner of her stall, an instinctive retreat from whatever shadow loomed closer than comfort would allow. Rosie's heart pounded as she stood at the entrance of Lot 41's stall, watching the mare flinch at every sudden movement and sound. The vibrant colors of the barn seemed to blur around her, and the smell of hay and horse sweat filled her nostrils as she instinctively reached out towards Lot 41. "It's all right," she said softly, her voice low but steady, trying to convey calm through her body language. The mare's wide eyes darted from Rosie to Wade, who was assessing the situation with a furrowed brow. "Just breathe," Rosie urged gently, taking a cautious step closer while remaining grounded in place. She could feel the tension radiating from Lot 41. The girl could almost taste it in the air, an electric charge that made every instinct scream to retreat. But this was different. Rosie felt an unwavering connection pulling her toward the frightened animal. As another horse whinnied nearby, Lot 41 shot backward into the corner of her stall, pressing against the wooden slats as if they could shield her from whatever danger lurked outside. Rosie winced sympathetically at that reaction. She knew all too well what fear felt like when everything around you turned chaotic and loud. "It's okay," Rosie called softly again, hoping her words would penetrate through Lot 41's anxiety like a soothing balm over fresh wounds. "You're safe here." Even though she couldn't hear what others might think about her interactions with horses or how they would view their own sounds as intimidating rather than just noise, a mere distraction in this moment. She understood so much more by merely looking into those wide eyes. "What do you think?" Wade asked quietly beside her, his tone betraying his concern, yet softened by warmth as he tried to gauge how close they should get to Lot 41. "I think—" Rosie hesitated briefly before continuing with conviction rising within her voice. "I think we can help each other." Wade regarded his daughter thoughtfully as he saw determination bloom on Rosie's face, a sign that went beyond simple hope. It made him proud, but also worried for what lay ahead if things didn't unfold perfectly. Still watching silently alongside him, fear mingled with belief danced between them both, until finally breaking under pressure when another clatter erupted somewhere further down their aisle, a pair of trainers leading another horse out for inspection. Lot 41 jerked back once more at this unexpected intrusion. Adrenaline surged through Rosie like wildfire as it dawned upon her how deeply rooted this mare's fear truly was. It wasn't just because of overwhelming external stimuli, but something much deeper. A history wrapped in unkindness and misunderstanding. Rosie's mind raced back to moments throughout life where people had quickly dismissed others labeled difficult. Suddenly, finding herself paralleled with this anxious creature stirred feelings buried deep within, one that had persevered despite being overlooked or misunderstood time after time. "We can be better together," she thought fiercely. The barn felt alive with energy. As Rosie stepped inside, her senses awakening to the familiar smell of hay and leather. Sunlight streamed through the open door, casting warm patches on the concrete floor and illuminating the rows of stalls that lined the sides. Each stall held its own story. Some contained vibrant horses with eager eyes, while others housed more withdrawn residents like Lot 41. With a mixture of determination and trepidation, Rosie moved closer to Lot 41's stall, where the mare stood trembling slightly in one corner. The glossy coat glistened under the sunlight, but seemed dulled by fear. Deep pools of anxiety reflected in her large brown eyes. The faint sound of distant hooves echoed down the aisle as other horses were led out for training or examination, their steady thuds contrasting sharply with Lot 41's skittishness. "It's all right," Rosie whispered soothingly. She approached slowly, mindful not to make any sudden movements that might frighten her further. The last thing she wanted was for this beautiful creature to retreat deeper into herself when all Rosie longed for was connection. Lot 41's gaze darted around nervously. Each noise sent ripples of tension through her body. Rosie understood that kind of fear all too well, the feeling of being overwhelmed by a world that seemed unwelcoming and loud. "We're going to help each other," she murmured softly as she drew nearer. As she reached out a hand toward Lot 41, a gesture meant to convey calmness, the mare flinched again, pressing against the wooden slats behind her as if they could provide refuge from an unseen threat. "No need to be scared," Rosie reassured her gently, keeping her palm open and visible, offering trust instead of demanding it. Taking a breath filled with resolve, Rosie steadied herself and lowered into a crouch beside the stall gate so she wouldn't tower over Lot 41 anymore. This way felt less intimidating. She was no longer an overwhelming presence looming above, but instead appeared smaller and more approachable on level ground. "I'm here," she said softly, while allowing some space between them, a physical distance, yet also an emotional one that needed time to close. The air around them felt charged with possibility. Every heartbeat echoed Rosie's wish for this moment, to bridge two lives seeking understanding. With every passing second filled with silence punctuated only by their breaths, Lot 41 began edging cautiously closer. Her head dipped low as curiosity sparked within those wide eyes. Could it be? Had someone finally come without judgment? Despite everything else swirling around them, the clattering hoofbeats echoing in chaotic rhythm along the barn aisle, Rosie focused solely on this tentative interaction unfolding before her. When Lot 41 was just within reach, but still hesitant about crossing into complete trust territory, something shifted within Rosie. A quiet resolve solidified deep in her core. "We'll take our time." It wasn't just about training or learning commands, it was about forming bonds that transcended words or expectations. With an air of cautious determination, Rosie stood before Lot 41, the anxious mare still lingering just beyond reach. The moment felt electric, charged with potential, as both horse and girl gauged one another's intentions. Lot 41's large eyes were wide, reflecting a mix of fear and curiosity that mirrored Rosie's own tumultuous emotions. She was acutely aware of the way her heart raced in tandem with the mare's nervous breaths, each exhale a silent plea for understanding. The barn echoed with the hustle and bustle of trainers leading other horses through the aisle. Their heavy hooves clattered against the concrete floor, adding to the intensity of the moment. Lot 41 jerked back once more, her body taut like a bowstring ready to snap, and Rosie could feel an overwhelming surge of empathy wash over her. This wasn't merely about external noise or chaotic surroundings, it ran deeper than that. It was a legacy of unkindness that had shaped this horse's reality. And suddenly, It struck Rosie how often she herself had been dismissed as difficult or unmanageable. Her fingers trembled slightly as they hovered near her side, an instinctive reaction born from years of feeling overlooked in a world designed for those who fit neatly within its confines. The recognition surged through her. "We can be better together," she vowed silently to both herself and this frightened creature standing before her. Each second stretched long between them like an invisible thread connecting their hearts, a shared understanding forged in moments spent navigating pain. As time ticked away beneath the weighty silence permeating the barn, Lot 41 took tentative steps closer. Her head dipped low. Curiosity sparked within those soulful eyes. Could it be? Despite everything else swirling around them, the cacophony of hoofbeats echoing off walls, Rosie focused solely on this fragile interaction unfolding before her. When Lot 41 approached close enough to sense Rosie's warmth but halted at that threshold of complete trust, something shifted deep inside Rosie. A quiet resolve began to solidify in her core. "We'll take our time." This journey wasn't simply about commands or obedience. It involved building connections that transcended mere words or preconceived notions. With slow movements meant to convey peace rather than urgency, Rosie knelt down on one knee, creating space between them that invited closeness without pressure. "Hey there," she murmured softly into the thick air laden with hay and gentle horse scents, while extending an open palm adorned with bits of apple. The sweet aroma wafting between them like a promise, something nourishing waiting just out of reach. The mare paused. Uncertainty still flickered across her features, but mingled now with burgeoning interest. Lot 41 took another small step forward, then another, until at last she was close enough for Rosie to see every detail etched into her coat. The subtle dapples glimmering under strands of sunlight filtering through high windows above them. Lot 41 inched forward, her initial hesitance gradually giving way to cautious curiosity as she approached Rosie, who knelt on the barn floor. Each step brought a quiet thrill coursing through Rosie, a pulse of hope igniting within her. She watched the mare's every move, each inch closer, feeling like a monumental victory against the shadows of doubt that had loomed over them both. The barn was alive with sounds, the gentle creaking of wood mingling with distant whinnies and soft rustles of hay. The aroma of fresh bedding filled the air, wrapping around them like a warm embrace. But it was Lot 41's hesitant steps that captured Rosie's undivided attention, drawing her into this fragile moment woven together by trust and vulnerability. As Lot 41 stretched her neck forward, those big eyes glimmered with a mix of wariness and fascination. Rosie held out her hand slowly, palm open, to reveal a small offering, bits of apple shining like gems in the dim light filtering through the high windows above. "I won't hurt you," she whispered gently, her voice barely rising above the ambient hum surrounding them. Every second felt suspended as Rosie remained perfectly still, exuding calmness in stark contrast to the storm swirling inside her chest. It wasn't merely about training. This was an invitation for connection, a bridge between their worlds that would lead them toward understanding one another beyond spoken words. Lot 41 paused again at the threshold where uncertainty met desire. The once guarded distance began to collapse as she ventured closer, sniffing cautiously at Rosie's hand while taking calculated breaths to absorb not only the scent of apples, but also something deeper. Acceptance without judgment. "Good girl," Rosie murmured softly, allowing herself to lean slightly forward without encroaching upon Lot 41's space too abruptly. The mare seemed transfixed by Rosie's soothing presence, curious yet tentative, as if trying to decipher whether this human really posed no threat after all. A bead of sweat trickled down Rosie's temple from both nerves and excitement. She'd never felt quite so connected before. Tentatively, she extended an index finger toward Lot 41's muzzle, not reaching for or touching just yet, but allowing space for choice and comfort in this tender negotiation. The mare took one more small step closer, until finally they shared breath within inches apart. Heartbeats synchronized amidst silence laden with unspoken questions and dreams aching to unfold. There was something powerful about such intimacy, born not from force, but rather mutual yearning, for trust forged slowly through kindness instead of commands. Rosie kept her gaze locked on Lot 41's expressive eyes, as if speaking directly into that wide gaze where caution softened into intrigue. "You're safe here." She didn't need sound for Lot 41 to perceive sincerity radiating from every word unvoiced between them. A promise anchored deeply within their hearts, bound by fate. Rosie crouched low, feeling the earth's coolness beneath her knees as she extended a hand adorned with apple bits towards Lot 41. The air around them buzzed with an electric tension, a moment suspended in time where uncertainty mingled with hope. The mare's soft breath washed over Rosie, carrying scents of hay and warm horse, a familiar comfort that enveloped her like a hug. With each step Lot 41 took closer, Rosie could sense the careful negotiation unfolding between them. Trust was being built in silent increments. But their tender moment of connection was abruptly shattered when voices cut through the tranquil atmosphere like jagged shards of glass. "Is this really necessary?" A sharp voice echoed from the barn entrance, laced with skepticism and disbelief. The sound broke Rosie's concentration, causing her pulse to quicken as she instinctively turned her head toward the source. 3 figures stood just outside the barn, 2 men and a woman, arms crossed and expressions tight with doubt. One man, tall and broad-shouldered with a scowl etched on his face, stepped forward first. "This is ridiculous," he scoffed, shaking his head as if trying to rid himself of what he perceived as nonsense before him. The woman beside him shifted nervously on her feet while adjusting her glasses, peering at Rosie through narrowed eyes as though searching for validation among invisible doubts. "You really think you can train that horse? She's been deemed untrainable by professionals." Her tone dripped with condescension, casting shadows over the optimism that had bloomed so brightly moments ago. Rosie's heart sank at their disdainful words. They hadn't seen what she'd seen. They hadn't felt the tentative warmth blooming between herself and Lot 41, a bond stitched together by shared understanding rather than mere commands or expectations. Clenching her jaw against waves of frustration threatening to spill over, she stood tall despite their looming presence. "You don't know her like I do," Rosie shot back defiantly, gesturing toward Lot 41, who remained cautiously aware of the new arrivals but still focused on Rosie's outstretched palm. "She's not broken. She just needs someone who understands." "What are you going to do? Whisper sweet nothings to it?" The other man chimed in derisively while stepping further into their space without invitation, a move meant to assert dominance, but only served to rattle both Rosie and Lot 41 alike. "No," Rosie replied firmly but quietly enough for only Lot 41 to hear alongside her wavering confidence. "I'm going to show her what she's capable of, on her terms." As if sensing Rosie's resolve faltering under scrutiny, Lot 41 stepped back slightly, her body language signaling unease amid these new pressures infiltrating their sanctuary. Uncertainty flickered anew across those expressive eyes that had begun softening just moments prior. With a deep breath, Rosie squared her shoulders, determination coursing through her veins as she focused on Lot 41. The air buzzed with tension, the weight of anticipation wrapping around them both like a thick fog. In this fragile moment, she felt the unyielding desire to bridge the gap between them, a connection forged not through words, but through understanding. Lot 41 shifted on her hooves, her large eyes darting in response to the unfamiliar sounds surrounding them. A distant clatter from the barn echoed in the air, and Rosie recognized that the world outside their small sanctuary held its own uncertainties. Yet here stood this mare, an embodiment of untapped potential waiting for someone to unlock it. "Let's start at your pace," Rosie whispered softly, extending her hand once more towards Lot 41's muzzle, not reaching out or invading her space yet, just allowing for choice and comfort in this delicate exchange. She could sense the mare's hesitance, but also that flicker of curiosity beginning to grow. Tentatively, Lot 41 edged closer until they were nearly nose to nose. A shared breath filled their tiny bubble while heartbeats synced amidst an atmosphere laden with unspoken hopes and dreams yearning to be realized. There was something extraordinary about this intimacy, born not from forceful commands, but instead from mutual respect and kindness. Rosie kept her gaze locked onto Lot 41's expressive eyes, as if pouring all her thoughts directly into that warm gaze where caution began melting away into intrigue. "You're safe here." Just then, another voice intruded upon their quiet sanctuary. A man with a condescending tone broke into Rosie's focused moment. "What are you going to do? Whisper sweet nothings to it." His sarcasm dripped from his lips while he stepped closer without invitation, a maneuver meant to assert dominance, but only served to rattle both Rosie and Lot 41 alike. "No," Rosie replied firmly yet quietly enough for just Lot 41 to hear alongside her wavering confidence. As if sensing Rosie's resolve weakening under scrutiny, Lot 41 instinctively stepped back slightly. Unease flickered across those expressive eyes that had begun softening mere moments before. But Rosie knew she couldn't let fear hold sway over their bond. She had made a promise. Focusing solely on Lot 41 again, she took gentle steps forward while maintaining eye contact as best as possible. Her body language open and inviting rather than threatening or imposing. With every inch gained back towards trust came an exhilarating sense of hope, shimmering like sunlight dancing across water. Time passed slowly as they navigated this new territory together, Rosie moving cautiously while encouraging Lot 41 with soft gestures aimed at reaffirming safety. Each slow motion mirrored by careful watching within those soulful depths of brown enveloped in vulnerability yet ripe for growth. Rosie stood at the edge of the pen, the soft rustle of hay beneath her boots grounding her as she stared at Lot 41. The mare shifted nervously, her glossy coat catching glimmers of sunlight while shadows danced across the ground. Rosie could feel a charged energy in the air, an unspoken tension that hung between them like fog, thickening with every second they spent in each other's presence. "Breathe," Rosie whispered, though she knew Lot 41 couldn't hear her gentle encouragement. She extended her hand slowly, palm up, hoping to convey calmness and invitation rather than fear. The other men lingered nearby, their hushed voices cutting through the silence like jagged rocks against water. "I don't think you can handle that one," one man remarked with a scoff as he leaned against the wooden fence post. He crossed his arms defiantly, exuding an air of arrogance that made Rosie's stomach twist into knots. What makes you think this horse will ever listen to you?" Rosie's heart raced at his words. Doubt began to seep in like cold water on a winter's day, chilling her resolve. But as she looked back at Lot 41, her eyes meeting those nervous brown orbs, the promise she'd made swelled within her chest once again. "No," she replied softly, but firmly enough for only Lot 41 to hear. "I'm going to show you what we can do together, on your terms." As if sensing Rosie's renewed determination, Lot 41's body language shifted slightly. She stepped back just an inch before regaining composure amidst uncertainty swirling around them both. With careful consideration, Rosie took a few steps forward, maintaining eye contact to reassure the mare that she was safe here with her. Each cautious advance felt monumental. It was as if time itself slowed down as they shared this delicate dance, a fragile balance between trust and trepidation. For several minutes, they moved in synchronicity. Rosie, encouraged with subtle gestures and gentle movements, aimed solely at affirming safety while keeping herself within sight, each calculated motion mirrored by cautious observation from those soulful depths filled with vulnerability, yet ripe for growth. But then it happened. A sudden commotion erupted outside the paddock. A loud bark from one of their dogs startled both Rosie and Lot 41 alike. The mare's ears perked up sharply. Panic ignited behind those expressive eyes once more. Instinctively bolting backward, she reared slightly before darting away toward the far corner of the pen, an explosion of motion fueled by sheer terror. "Lot 41!" Rosie called out urgently as adrenaline surged through her veins like wildfire, consuming everything in its path. But instead of coming back toward her, or even stopping to evaluate what had frightened her so deeply, Lot 41 continued racing along the fence line, the sound echoing harshly against Rosie's ears, despite not being able to hear it fully over her own heartbeat, thundering in rhythm with fear. Damn it! The commotion erupted suddenly, a loud bark from one of their dogs slicing through the stillness of the morning. Instinctively, Rosie's heart raced as she watched Lot 41 react to the unexpected sound. The mare's ears shot up, her wide eyes revealing a depth of panic that sent shivers down Rosie's spine. Without hesitation, Lot 41 bolted backward, rearing slightly before dashing toward the far corner of the paddock. Her reaction was fueled purely by terror, a powerful force that left Rosie feeling helpless. "Lot 41!" Rosie called out urgently, her voice rising above the chaotic din of adrenaline coursing through her body. She could sense every heartbeat reverberating in her chest as she fought against the fear gripping both her and the mare. Yet instead of turning back or even pausing to assess what had frightened her so deeply, Lot 41 continued to race along the fence line, her hooves pounding against the ground like a drum echoing in Rosie's ears, despite not being able to fully hear it over her own thunderous heartbeat. Rosie's hands clenched into fists at her sides, she fought against a surge of desperation threatening to overwhelm her. She took a breath, grounding herself momentarily with memories of how far they had come together. The small victories etched into each training session that now felt fragile under this sudden onslaught of anxiety. "Please," she whispered softly to herself, drawing on every ounce of determination within her as she focused once more on Lot 41's graceful frame darting across the paddock. "You're okay." Steeling herself for what came next, Rosie began moving forward cautiously. Her steps were deliberate and measured, each one taken with care in hopes that Lot 41 would feel safe enough to respond. She kept eye contact fixed on those deep brown eyes filled with confusion and fear while attempting to radiate calmness through every fiber of her being. It was critical now for Rosie to embody safety, clarity, and patience, the qualities that had become essential during their time together. Time seemed suspended in this volatile moment. Nothing existed outside their shared space. Only Lot 41's agitated movements flickering against Rosie's resolve, like flames hungry for air. As she edged closer still, Rosie raised an open palm towards the mare, a gesture forged from weeks spent learning how vital it was for them both to share trust without words cluttering their connection. Gradually but surely, she saw something shift in Lot 41's demeanor, the furious energy dissipating just enough for curiosity to bloom within those expressive eyes once again. But just then, another startling noise pierced through their fragile progress. A sudden rustle in nearby bushes caused both horse and human alike to freeze mid-step. Lot 41 flinched visibly and instinctively retreated further into herself, Unease danced across those soulful depths, previously softened by understanding moments before. Everything inside Rosie urged her not to let fear take hold again, not after everything they had begun building between them. A sudden bark erupted from one of the dogs, shattering the fragile peace in the paddock. Rosie's heart raced as she watched Lot 41's ears prick forward, her body tensing up like a tightly coiled spring. The mare's eyes flared with panic, and before Rosie could utter another word, Lot 41 bolted backward in a frantic attempt to escape the source of her fear. The ground shook slightly beneath Rosie's feet as she instinctively reached out for the horse, but Lot 41 was already dashing toward the far corner of the pen, her movements fueled by pure terror. "Lot 41!" Rosie called out, urgency lacing her voice. Adrenaline surged through her veins, quickening her pulse and sharpening her senses as if every moment had stretched into an eternity. But instead of returning or even halting to assess what frightened her so deeply, Lot 41 continued racing along the fence line. The echo of hooves pounding against earth reverberated harshly around Rosie, even though she couldn't quite hear it, above the roaring sound of her own heartbeat. "Damn it," Rosie whispered under her breath. She fought to regain control over herself amid that whirlwind of fear. Taking a deep breath, she steadied herself and raised an open palm toward Lot 41, a gesture born from weeks spent learning how vital it was for them both to cultivate trust without words cluttering their connection. Gradually but surely, something began to shift in Lot 41's demeanor. That furious energy waned enough for curiosity to flicker within those expressive eyes once again. But just as hope began to blossom in Rosie's chest, another startling noise broke through their fragile progress. A sudden rustle from nearby bushes made both horse and human freeze mid-step. Lot 41 flinched visibly once more and instinctively retreated deeper into herself. Unease danced across those soulful depths that had softened moments before, thanks to their newfound understanding. Everything inside Rosie screamed not to let fear take hold again, not after all they had begun building together. "Breathe with me," Rosie murmured softly, wishing desperately that words would somehow reach the mare amidst this chaos surrounding them. She lowered her arm slowly and took a step closer, while keeping her movements deliberate yet gentle, fostering calmness rather than triggering fresh anxiety. After what felt like an eternity, filled with uncertainty and tension hanging heavily between them, Lot 41's inquisitive gaze softened further at last. Those wild eyes focused intently on Rosie now, instead of darting toward shadows lurking beyond their immediate surroundings. As if sensing an opportunity presenting itself before her at long last, Rosie dropped down onto one knee beside the fence line, a position which radiated vulnerability while still ensuring visibility for Lot 41's wary stance nearby. This was no longer merely about trying to corral a frightened animal, but about establishing mutual trust between two beings who understood each other on deeper levels than most humans could fathom. Rosie knelt by the fence, her heart pounding as she steadied her breath. Lot 41's eyes flickered with uncertainty, yet there was a glimmer of curiosity lurking beneath her initial wariness. The weight of their shared silence hung thick in the air, each moment stretching like a taut rope, ready to snap if either of them faltered. A sudden rustling from the nearby bushes shattered that fragile tranquility, causing both Rosie and Lot 41 to freeze. The mare's body tightened instinctively at the sound, a primal response rooted deep within her psyche. Rosie felt an ache in her chest as she watched Lot 41 retreat further into herself, those once softening eyes darting nervously toward the shadows, encroaching on their peace. "Stay with me," Rosie murmured softly, urging calmness through her gentle tone despite the storm brewing inside. She forced herself to maintain steady movements, knowing that any abrupt gesture could send the mare spiraling back into panic. Carefully, she spread her palms wide, an open invitation for trust rather than flight. Time seemed to stretch as they remained locked in this tense standoff, but gradually Rosie noticed a shift within Lot 41's demeanor. The raw energy of fear began to dissipate as curiosity took root again within those soulful depths. With measured patience, Rosie dropped onto one knee beside the fence line, a position that radiated vulnerability while still allowing visibility for Lot 41's wary stance. "No more running," she signed slowly, deliberately reinforcing a connection beyond words, one built upon understanding and respect for what they both faced. Her gaze never left the mare's intense eyes, which now softened slightly under Rosie's unwavering attention. The moments stretched longer still, as Lot 41 cautiously approached the invisible boundary between them, inching forward out of sheer curiosity, tinged with uncertainty. Each step taken was deliberate and tentative. Those wild eyes were focused solely on Rosie now, instead of skittishly darting toward unseen threats lurking in the distance. "That's it," Rosie encouraged softly, with both voice and signs, letting warmth seep into every motion she made. The delicate waver of fingers translating more than mere letters or sounds ever could convey. They were two souls treading through hidden fears together, neither one truly alone anymore. Just then, another loud noise echoed, a branch snapping somewhere off in the woods, and immediately Lot 41 flinched again, muscles taut with alarm, as she backed away from their growing connection like water pulled away from shore by an ebbing tide. Panic surged through Rosie's veins at this regression. She fought against frustration bubbling up inside her throat when all she wanted was to prove that they could do this, that there existed strength amid vulnerability. Courage rallied within her as well. Fierce determination bloomed anew against setbacks and uncertainties alike. "No! You're safe here!" Rosie dropped to one knee beside the fence line, heart racing as she fought against her rising panic. Lot 41's gaze flickered between Rosie and the shadows lurking just beyond the trees, muscles coiling tightly as she instinctively prepared to flee. The tension in the air felt suffocating, each heartbeat thudding like a war drum in Rosie's chest. She breathed deeply, focusing on calming her own nerves, willing herself to project reassurance. "Hey, girl," she murmured softly, keeping her voice gentle and low. "You're safe here." As if hearing the sincerity behind Rosie's words rather than their sound, Lot 41 hesitated, those wild eyes narrowing with curiosity. Slowly but surely, Rosie began to extend her hand, fingers outstretched like an olive branch, hoping to bridge the gap that separated them. Just then, an unexpected crack echoed through the woods, a branch snapping underfoot, and Lot 41 recoiled violently at the sudden noise. Her body tensed like a tightly wound spring. Fear radiated from her posture as she backed away from Rosie with frantic energy. Alarm surged within Rosie at this regression. Frustration bubbled beneath her skin like molten lava ready to erupt. "No!" Rosie said urgently, fighting back despair. She didn't want Lot 41 to retreat into fear again when they were so close. "You're safe here," she repeated firmly but softly, determination flooding through her veins as fresh resolve blossomed within her chest. The mare's large eyes darted around nervously at invisible threats, while leaving behind any semblance of trust they had begun building moments earlier. In this moment of shared uncertainty and vulnerability, a feeling all too familiar for both of them, Rosie realized they were not merely working against fear together. They were learning how to redefine it altogether. Crouching down further until she was almost resting on her heels, Rosie kept still and vulnerable before Lot 41. Each deliberate move was designed to convey calmness while inviting connection rather than triggering fresh anxiety. It was more than about coaxing a frightened horse. It transformed into a beautiful dance between two souls seeking understanding amidst their respective fears. After what felt like an eternity, something shifted within Lot 41. Her wary expression softened ever so slightly as curiosity replaced some of that raw terror in those dark eyes. tentatively stepping closer once more, taking small but confident strides toward where Rosie knelt by the fence line, a sign perhaps that trust could be rebuilt after all. Encouraged by this brave step forward, yet acutely aware of every trembling movement made by the mare nearby, her own heart echoing with trepidation, Rosie decided it was time for action again. Fostering deeper bonds grounded in patience and empathy would prove invaluable throughout this process. Ahead, Rosie's heart raced as she knelt by the fence, watching Lot 41 shift nervously. The air felt thick with unspoken tension, a palpable energy flowing between them like an invisible thread connecting two souls navigating through their fears. Each rustle of leaves or distant crack echoed in her mind, amplifying the unease that had taken hold of the mare. Rosie inhaled deeply, grounding herself amidst her rising anxiety, reminding herself that patience was their greatest ally. "You're safe here," she whispered softly, her fingers wiggling in front of Lot 41's wide eyes, an invitation wrapped in empathy. Every flicker of movement mirrored her own nervousness, but within that vulnerable space lay the potential for trust to blossom once more. Lot 41 backed away slightly, muscles coiled tightly as if bracing for an unseen threat. Frustration welled up inside Rosie. She longed to show the mare that they could overcome this fear together. She knew from experience that forcing a connection would only drive them further apart. Instead, she focused on remaining calm and steady while pushing aside doubts that threatened to shatter her resolve. With great care, Rosie extended a hand toward the trembling horse again. "Look at me," she urged gently but firmly. Their gazes locked across the distance, the warmth radiating from Rosie's open palm, contrasting sharply with Lot 41's wary stance. For what felt like ages, time stretched as they remained suspended in this moment of quiet confrontation. Then it happened. Slowly but surely, Lot 41 took a hesitant step forward, a brave movement fraught with uncertainty, yet rich with possibility. Hope flickered to life within Rosie. Perhaps this was it, the breakthrough she'd been waiting for. Encouraged by Lot 41's bravery, she remained perfectly still and offered nothing but reassurance woven into every motion. "That's it," she murmured soothingly when another tentative stride brought the mare closer still. Little by little, inching forward toward that line drawn between trust and fear. A fragile bridge crafted through understanding rather than forceful demands. A soft sigh escaped Rosie's lips as joy warmed her chest. It felt monumental to witness this shift, a sign that they could forge something beautiful amid chaos and trauma. But just then, a sudden rustle snapped through the brush nearby, perhaps merely a squirrel scampering along, but it sent shockwaves rippling through both their bodies. Lot 41 flinched violently at the noise and retreated into herself once again. Panic surged through Rosie's veins like ice water flooding over flames threatening to ignite anew. "No!" She fought against frustration clawing at her throat, even as tears prickled at the corners of her eyes. This wasn't just about coaxing a frightened horse anymore. It transformed into something deeper, a ballet between two spirits seeking solace amid shared vulnerabilities. Rosie knelt on the ground, her heart racing as the tension in the air thickened. Lot 41 was close now, curiosity flickering in her dark eyes, but the slightest noise, a rustle from the nearby brush, shattered the fragile moment. The mare jerked back, terror erupting in a wild flinch that sent Rosie's stomach plummeting. It was as if all their progress had been undone in an instant. "No!" Panic clawed at Rosie's throat as frustration surged within her. Tears pricked at her eyelids. This wasn't merely about coaxing a frightened horse. It was becoming a profound connection between two souls navigating their respective traumas. She clenched her jaw and took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm despite the storm of emotions. "Easy there," Rosie murmured softly, grounding herself in steadiness while trying to project reassurance through her movements. She remained still, maintaining eye contact with Lot 41 as she worked to quell the panic radiating off the mare like an electric charge. Each second felt excruciatingly long as they locked gazes. This was more than just training. It was about building trust. The world around them faded into insignificance, every blade of grass and distant bird call dissolving into silence as Rosie focused solely on Lot 41. With deliberate slowness, she drew a small stick from the ground and began tracing a gentle line in the dirt, a visual anchor amidst chaos. The simple act drew Lot 41's attention away from whatever unseen threat lurked beyond their bubble. "You see this? Just a line," Rosie continued softly, letting each stroke linger longer than necessary, as if embedding a sense of peace within that small space where they met. "Nothing scary here." The mare hesitated, but took a cautious step forward again, drawn closer by Rosie's unwavering presence. With her heart thumping like thunderous hooves against soft earth, Rosie recognized this delicate dance. They were both seeking solace in one another's understanding amidst shared vulnerabilities. When Lot 41 edged near enough for Rosie to see every trembling muscle beneath her coat, she felt joy swell inside her chest. Progress might be slow, but it was undeniably there. Moments ticked by like hours until finally a breakthrough. Lot 41 extended her neck forward just enough for Rosie to feel warmth radiate from those curious nostrils brushing lightly against her palm like an unspoken promise beginning to unfold between them. As she offered soothing words filled with hope and encouragement that echoed only within herself, the world outside faded even further away, as if nothing mattered more than this singular connection forming before them. Two beings finding their way back toward each other after being lost amidst fear and misunderstanding. But suddenly, another sound sliced through their reverie. A nearby vehicle engine revved up distantly across open fields, the type of noise capable of sending any horse running for cover. And once again, panic danced across Lot 41's features like shadows enveloping light. A rustle in the brush sent a chill through Rosie as she held her breath, hoping to maintain the fragile connection she'd forged with Lot 41. The horse flinched, eyes wide and fearful, nostrils flaring at the sound. Rosie's heart raced, mirroring the anxiety that coursed through both their bodies. She could feel the tension creeping back into Lot 41's stance. Was it even possible to reclaim this moment of trust? "Easy now," Rosie murmured, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "Just breathe." She stood still, grounding herself as she focused on calming energy radiating from within. Her palm remained open, extended towards Lot 41 like an invitation, a bridge built upon hope. The mare shifted uneasily, but didn't retreat all the way. Instead, she began to inch closer again. Rosie felt a surge of relief mixed with elation. They had come so far together. This delicate ballet of emotions, their shared vulnerability, made each heartbeat echo louder than before. But another sound jolted through the air, a distant engine growling across the fields, and panic washed over Lot 41 once more. The beautiful promise of connection flickered precariously like a candle in a storm. Rosie took a step forward and dropped her hand slightly, softening her presence. "No." A wave of frustration clawed at Rosie's throat. She bit back tears as anxiety threatened to consume them both again. It wasn't merely about coaxing a scared horse anymore. It became something profound, two souls yearning for solace amidst chaos. Lot 41's gaze darted toward the source of disturbance. Panic twisted her features into fear once more. But Rosie wouldn't let this slip away. She refused to give up on what they had started together. "Remember?" She leaned closer, as if sharing secrets only they could hear. "You are safe here with me." The energy was electric as Lot 41 hesitated, curious yet cautious about this brave human who dared to reach out despite everything. Drawing in a deep breath that felt almost ceremonial, Rosie repeated simple gestures they had practiced together, drawing circles in front of her with an open palm and gentle movements meant to convey calm reassurance in visual language rather than sounds lost between them. As if compelled by some unspoken pact forming between them amidst fragile hopes and fears intertwined, Lot 41 took one tentative step forward and then another, until their warmth mingled when contact finally broke through distance separating them. A nose meeting palm, like whispered promises exchanged under stars long forgotten by time itself. Rosie smiled softly while remaining still. Nothing mattered more than nurturing this newly blossomed trust, blooming against all odds between them. Two beings finding their way home after wandering through darkness filled with uncertainty. In that sacred space, carved out beneath azure skies alive with possibility unfurling around them, suddenly anything felt possible again. Not just survival, but thriving too.